As we start, welcome everybody to our self elevation series. I'm delighted to have everyone here. I want to tell everyone a bit about our self elevation series, and then I want to invite our guest speaker for the day to the stage. So, we created the self elevation series as part of our roundtable programming as a place for our coaches to offer guidance, evidence, and practices for areas of their lives where their professional and personal lives intersect. Arguably, that's everything. But we felt like with our tremendous foundation of coaches in our community, we wanted to make sure we could, really kind of put the spotlight on our chapter leaders and coaches. And I'm just so delighted to have Isioma Utomi as our self elevation speaker today. Isioma has been a long-standing Ellevate member. She runs our community circle for entrepreneurs. So I just couldn't be more delighted, Isioma, to have you here. Well, still waiting for people to join from the waiting room, but I'll do an intro. And I had so many things to say about Isioma. I couldn't actually shorten it. But Isioma Utomi is just a highly sought after leadership consultant and productivity strategist. And she's really known for helping entrepreneurs and executives transform how they work and win. And the win part is actually fairly important here. She's the CEO of Catalyst Experience Solutions and the founder of the Performance Upgrade Lab. And we're going to hear more about that today. And she equips leaders with the mindset, skills, and tools to really build resilient, high growth businesses. She's been doing this work leading Lean Six Sigma projects in Fortune 500 companies. And among her many, many accolades, she is a Salzburg Global Fellow. And in 2023, she was recognized as top 100 most influential people of African descent. So we just couldn't be more proud of having you here, Isioma. And she's on the board of Startup South and the Center for Values and Leadership. And she spearheads women who launch at Lagos Startup Week, amplifying female voices in the Africa's tech ecosystem. So many awards, Isioma, so much recognition for what you do. We just couldn't be happier than to have you here. So I want to turn it over to you. We're here to listen to you. So please take it away.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Anusha. And welcome, everyone. So happy to see you here. Obviously, like Anusha says, I've been a member of Ellevate for a couple of years now. I actually joined during the pandemic when I was trying to figure out how to start my own business. So literally the growth of my business is parallel to my journey with Ellevate. So definitely it's a lovely community and I've loved being a part of it. And so let's get started. I'll share my screen so that we can get down to the topic at hand. And if at any point you have questions, feel free to share in the chat. If I see them along the way, I'll try to respond. If not, then we'll respond at the break. Okay, can everyone see my screen?
Yes,
Yes,
crystal clear. Crystal clear.
Awesome. Thank you. So today we're talking about human-centered productivity, which is totally everyone's favorite topic, isn't it? Productivity. But we're really talking today specifically about aligning your well-being with professional success. And for many people, these are almost opposing topics. But I want you to come out of this presentation thinking about just how they might actually be extremely tied with how you live and how you work and how you become successful in the workplace. So like Anusha says, I've done a lot of interesting things in my life. I have a very mixed background. I started out as an engineer. I worked in manufacturing for many years. I have worked in the nonprofit space. I work a lot with tech startups and the African continent. And this peculiar mix of experiences has really, really helped me see from different perspectives the challenges that leaders face. And my mission essentially is to help people be more successful at work. And so if you're a leader in whatever industry that you're in, many of us face the same challenges. Many of us are trying to be more successful in this ever-changing world. I joke that every day, there's some new development in AI or, they've dropped a new chip. And the truth is all of us are living in this world. And as leaders, we need to become more adaptable and innovative in order to lead more effectively. And so that's what I do in my organization. So Catalyst is, my consulting firm, and the Performance Upgrade Lab is where I focus on helping managers develop those skills, develop the mindset and the tools that they need to be successful in the workplace. And so I'm giving you this preface in part because I want you to understand why this topic is extremely important to me and how I myself made this journey. Because I myself came from a background, you would say, of traditional productivity, engineer, manufacturing. If there's anything closer to the definition of productivity, it was probably that. But I want you to kind of understand why I believe it's so important to incorporate well-being and how it actually does translate to positive impact in your work. All right, so today, like I said, we'll talk about redefining productivity. So I want you to think of it a little differently from when you came in. I want you to also think about just how important it is as part of your leadership strategy. Think about the habits that you can use to drive sustainable performance. And of course, those little mindset shifts. I want you to think differently after this. Now, burnout is a topic I think from the last 5 years. I think it's entered our vocabulary in a way that maybe it never had before. So how many people, you can let me know in the chat, how many people have experienced burnout or know someone that's experienced burnout? You have, yes. I see a couple of yeses, you have. Oh, in the chat, I saw someone ask if I was Nigerian. Yes, I am. I am, in fact, Nigerian. Hi. So yes, a lot of people have experienced burnout. Yeah, they know someone who has experienced burnout as well. Exactly. So according to statistics, about 66% of employees this year are experiencing burnout. Like we're just in June. The year isn't is only like halfway in, and already 66% of employees are experiencing burnout. And that is unacceptable. Why are we in a state where we almost normalize the state of being where people are consistently feeling out of sorts or not in a particular frame of mind to give their best their work? And so for those who may not be familiar with the expression, so burnout is typically when you have a lot of tiredness, and it could be both like mental or physical, that doesn't allow you to do your work as effectively as you should. And if you think about it, in this kind of state that we're in, what are our chances of reaching where we want to in our careers if we are not consistently a place where we can produce the output that we want, that we are successful at work, which is the aim for many people. We want to be successful at what we're doing. We want to be happy. We want to feel fulfilled in our work. But obviously, if we're burning out, we aren't going to get that. So there are a lot of costs around that a lot of people don't acknowledge. So let's talk about the productivity paradox. So first of all, aside from many people having issues with just the word productivity in the first place, I hope most of us know that at this point that busy is not the same thing as productive. I remember, when I first started out in the workforce, busy was literally equivalent to productive in my head. It meant that you are running up and down, that you are, constantly involved in activities, that you didn't have a moment of rest. However, if you come even from the manufacturing definition of it, productivity means that there are outputs. It means that you are really it's about putting together resources efficiently in order to get a particular output. But part of the reason why this traditional definition of productivity isn't fitting as well in the current workplace is because one, it's pretty much from our manufacturing era, from the beginning of the industrial age, where we thought about producing goods and services in units. And that's essentially how, you're doing well was measured, essentially. But now we have different measures for success. And one of the important things I want you to leave here with is to really understand that your definition of success is ultimately what will help you also define what productive means. If it's merely, dropping 10 units a day and you've succeeded, that's one thing. If it means having a holistic life where you are present for your family, for your friends, in your workplace, with your colleagues, that's a different definition. It's like having a compass that points to your own unique North Star. So I don't know if anybody ever watched the Pirates of the Caribbean. I love movies, just by the way. There's always like a reference. So, but basically in the first movie, the main character, like Johnny Depp's character, has a compass, and the compass points to his true north, basically the thing that he most desires. And it runs contrary to everybody else's compass. All the compasses in the world are pointing to, normal north, but his points in a particular direction. The same thing has to be for your own definition of success, for your purpose, because knowing your own definition of success means that even if everyone is telling you that's what success means, making $1 million a year, flying on jets, whatever they say it is, you have your own compass that tells you, my true north is this. I want to, yes, make a good living, but I also want to be able to say I'm a present mother, or I'm a present sister, or, a present child. Any of those things could be part of our own definition of success. And as long as we don't incorporate that into our definition of success, we'll never reach a place where we actually feel truly productive. I see someone said in the chat they love Pirates of the Caribbean. Yes, great movie. Someone also says Microsoft Teams is my biggest micromanager. So yes, goodness. I don't know how we'll discuss that. We'll save that one for a later date. But definitely, there are definitely different definitions of productivity. So you have to choose the one that you believe in that aligns with your definition of success. So now let's talk about human-centered productivity, because that's the topic of this presentation. And for human-centered productivity, this is productivity that does incorporate some of the old and some of the new. It's productivity that honors your values, your energy, and well-being while still driving results. And it's important to have those two components because it recognizes that human beings are rounded, that there are different aspects of us. We aren't just, the old definition. Again, I always go back to manufacturing because it's essentially where a lot of this terminology came from, which is, you put something in, it goes through A, B, C, and something comes out. That's how machines work. They're pretty reliable like that. But human beings, there are lots of facets to us. You can wake up in the morning and, your child is not feeling well. That changes your day. You could, be ill. You could have a family member that you are a caregiver for. You could have coworkers that maybe you don't get along as well with, and others that you do. That could change your output. And so it's important to recognize all these differences in order to actually optimize for the outcome and to get the results that you do want. So let's talk about the key differences between traditional and human-centered productivity. So the traditional definition that most of us are used to is about controlling time. Everyone's like, time management. You have to be on top of what you're doing from A to B to C. From 7 to 8, you do this. From 8 to 9, we're doing that. And that's perfectly all right. Like, I love using my calendar, time blocking. My mind is so color-coded, it's spectacular. But at the same time, recognize that the old system is a little more about control. And in the new system, you have to think a little more about your energy. Yes, you can still use time blocking, but also recognize when are you more productive? The first hour in the morning, a lot of people tend to use that for, checking social media, checking emails. Meanwhile, that could be the time when you have the most alignment towards, deep work. You think about your plans for the day, think about the strategies you're trying to put in place. That time could be better used if you use that time for this. So you're still using your time blocking, but you're also recognizing that there are certain things that you do better at certain times of the day, certain times of the week or month, and then you also adjust accordingly. Now, the traditional definition, when we're talking about productivity, it's all about the grind. Everyone's on the grind. And I always find that word amusing because it's literally telling you that there is friction in the process. How many people, like you hear grind, what else do you think? There is friction in the process. It doesn't sound easy. It doesn't sound smooth. It sounds like you're going to be suffering. Meanwhile, for human-centered productivity, it looks at identifying a strategic rhythm. I love music. If you ever had like any kind of talk with me, I throw in music and movies everywhere. But I love music, and I love the fact that as a person, you can love music that is very fast paced at certain times, and other times you might like something that's a little more laid back. There are different moods, there are different times that you like certain things. And the same thing with your work. There might be certain seasons of your life where things really are going very, very fast paced. You have, a lot of things to do. You have a lot of, goals that you really want to accomplish. But you also recognize that there are times where it might be a little more evenly paced. And so recognizing that and incorporating that is a very important aspect of human-centered productivity. And then finally, output-based. For both kinds, you do want results. In the traditional one, it's literally you produced a good. Is this dimension? Is this many units? Yay. That's what we want. In the new version, in human-centered productivity, we're also looking at impact. How does this impact the people around us? How does it impact the customer? How does it impact our society? And so it offers a wider lens for what productivity actually means. So now I want you to type in the chat a little bit about your own experience or perspective on productivity. Tell me, how would you describe a productive woman? Like, what words would you use? Like, traditionally, what words would you use to describe a productive woman? So just put those in the chat. When I was growing up, I think my definition was very much included words like, multitasking. I didn't think you could be productive unless you were doing 10 things at the same time. That was just the definition I grew up with. You had to be, you're making dinner, you're filing reports, you're doing this and that. But I'm curious, everyone else, like, what's your definition? Okay, I see a lot of organized, okay. Juggler, yes, I know that one. Focused, decisive, she delivers, juggling all the balls without dropping them. I see a lot of people are recognizing that juggle. And prioritizes well. Excellent. There are definitely variety of definitions that we've grown up with around productivity. So the second question, follow up to that, and again, I want you to answer that in the chat. Where did these beliefs come from? So whether it's your family, whether it's TV, whether it's, people you worked with, maybe your first couple of jobs, where did those beliefs come from? So I see girl boss culture, parents, watching your mom, business books, a lot of parents, lots of parents, mom, type A managers, oh my. So I see your career, demanding business environment, a lot of movies, yep, experts. And of course, in school, exactly. Achievements in school. School essentially produced what you see in life in a lot of ways. So you were ranked as the best student, and that was essentially you had the most output. And a lot of us took that over into the professional workspace. Yeah. Last one, status quo. Exactly. So for many of us, we've had many influences, many things that told us this is what productive is supposed to be. So now, third question here. Is that still true for the leader you're becoming? Is that what you want for yourself? What aspects will you keep? What aspect don't you want? So some people are saying, no, that is not the future I want for myself. A lot of no's, resounding no's. Excellent. All right, good to see. So again, comes back to recognizing what you want, recognizing what success means to you. Exactly. Fulfillment over accomplishments. Exactly. So someone says, I want to keep being organized and be able to have what I want, but not the stressed perfection. That one gets me as a recovering perfectionist. Yes. So I firmly believe the most productive leaders I know are very focused, not distracted. Excellent. Thank you for that, Susan. And Allison says balance. Oh yes, balance. That balance that we all aim for. Excellent. Well, thank you for that. So now I want you to keep that in mind as we think many of us are leaders in our respective fields. And even if you think, you're not in a leadership role per se, if you run your own business, chances are you're working with people, you're collaborating with people. If you are, even if you're fairly early in your career, You are collaborating with others. There are very few roles now where you don't have to work with anyone else. So you have the opportunity to be in a leadership role. And I really want you to think of it as part of your strategy, not as something separate, but as a foundation you lay for the productivity of your team. The obvious, advantages are there. Better team engagement. I used to come to the office. I remember early in my career in one of my first jobs, and I would see this someone like sleeping at their desk, like first thing in the morning. And I was just like, how is that going to help you for like the rest of the day? You're already tired. And so can you imagine just how productive they've been they? I mean, they're there physically, but just how much output are you getting? Because they stayed in the office very late the night before and they showed up super early. But then if they're asleep at their desk, clearly you're not going to get the maximum output from them. So you can see how their sleep hygiene, their sleeping habits are really going to be impacting the work that you're going to be seeing. And of course, like we mentioned, employee burnout. If you're ever in a room with someone and they're standing next to a candle and their shirt catches fire, will you wait till it burns them or tell them immediately if their shirt catches fire? This is a test in the chat. Would you tell them immediately, or would you wait for them to get burned before you tell them that their shirt is on fire? Let me know in the chat. Tell them immediately. Oh, see, such nice people. See, I knew you were the right people. Excellent. All right. You would tell them immediately. So the same thing when you're working with your colleagues, when you lead a team, most of us see the signs. And so it's better to have preventative measures than essentially have something after the fact. And then finally, improve decision making. Think about, just the state of your mind whenever you are in, the workplace, whenever you have to make tactical decisions. The more you give yourself space for deep work, the more settled you are, both physically and mentally. So can you imagine if you are in a meeting and, you're thinking about school runs, you're going through like logistics for, picking someone up from here, have to go pick up dad from the airport, have to do this and do that, do that. Doesn't that impact your mindfulness? Doesn't that impact how present you are in that meeting? So it's very important to think about the different aspects of your life and how you integrate it into the way you work in order to produce, again, the output you want. Now, I will talk briefly about building better habits. You can have actually a whole presentation on this by itself. But let's talk about a few simple things you could do on a day-to-day basis that could really help you move forward in this regard. So I'm just seeing the chat. Someone says, if you see something, say something. Yes, with regards to the fire, yes, please do. And someone says, Ellie says, I really want to deprogram from the notion of multitasking. Absolutely. So I'll just do a quick note on that. So multitasking is exactly, Susan, it's a myth. So many people come from the train of thought that, if you're doing 3 things at a time or 10 things at a time, you're like the ultimate. Like, that's excellent. That's what we're aiming for. But the truth is, like, studies have shown that it's really focused time that we want to be looking for. Think of things more as activities one after the other versus simultaneous activities. So if you've ever actually done juggling, if you try juggling and walking, that's like a whole other experience by itself. But even just the act of launching multiple things in the air, how much focus do you have? If like a bird flew in front of you, chances are you won't see it. So a lot of times I encourage people to really think about their work in terms of, where do I want to place my energy? What do I value? And then where will I put that energy at that particular point in time? Chances are the quality that you will get is significantly better than trying to do multiple things simultaneously. And of course, there's certain points in the day or a life where, it all just comes at you. But at the same time, as much as possible, where you can actually, design your schedule, try to do it in a manner that allows you to have more focused work. So back to building better habits. So let's talk about a couple of simple things that one could do to improve well-being in the workplace, for instance. So habit stacking. So the concept of habit stacking is essentially you are putting a new habit on top of an existing habit. And so let's say, for instance, you want to have more meditation, mindfulness in your life. One of the ways people typically do that is you'll say, I will do X at this time and place. So I want to meditate, at 4 p.m. on my porch, for instance. What happens a lot of time is because it's such an arbitrary activity, we forget at 4 p.m. or if we're not on our porch. So put it on top of something that you are pretty sure you're going to be doing, and it improves the chances that it will happen. So let's say I meditate immediately after I, brush my teeth. And if your regular morning routine is get up, make your bed, brush your teeth, the sequence will be very simple. So you understand that in that sequence, I'm just adding this. So another thing is triggers, having reminders, having things that will essentially tell you this is the time to do this. So a lot of us have some fantastic phones. Phones are probably the prime example of everything that's triggering us right now. But the phone itself set reminders for things that are important. But even so, having like visual cues are very helpful for that. So for instance, if you say that, you want to do you want to exercise first thing in the morning. It's helpful to lay out your clothes, for instance, the night before, literally what you're going to wear the night before. Put it in front of your bed. So as you get up, you literally have like that visual cue and you're turning, it's like, oh, right, I'm supposed to be exercising right now. And that helps. And the last one, minimum viable habits. This, I'm not ashamed to say, is one of my favorites because when I was starting out, trying to get back into an exercise routine. So I've done yoga on and off for years, and I was trying to get back into routine, but it just felt so hard. So finally, I set up like a minimum requirement. Okay, I will do my yoga for 7 minutes in the morning after I wake up and make my bed. 7 minutes does not seem like a long time. In fact, for many people, they're like, are you actually exercising anything in 7 minutes? But it's to build that habit. And so I recognized that on days where, I had the energy, I was like, ooh, I can do this for 30 minutes straight. Excellent, excellent. But on the days where I felt tired and this was just like I really just want to get through the day, I have so much to do. If I got it for 7 minutes, I could say, yes, I've accomplished it. And I felt good about it. So just having like a minimum viable habit really helps, especially when you're getting started. And this one I often recommend a lot to founders or entrepreneurs who always tell me they don't have time. This is a good place to start for that. All right, so I'm just sharing a couple of bonus micro habits. So you can download this. There's a QR code on the screen. You can definitely scan and download this if you like to think of like some simple ways that you can incorporate little bits of well-being into your day. So I'm a big fan of not doing anything crazy at the start. Start with something simple. This is why these are micro habits. They're things that will take you 2 minutes, 5 minutes, but they allow you to really start bringing well-being into your daily schedule. For instance, meetings. Some of us, especially now, where many of us, you could have the whole day on Zoom, for instance. One micro habit you could start is walk for 2 minutes between meetings. Even if you have meetings that are back to back to back, chances are you probably have a minute or two between meetings. So in that little gap, get up and walk around. That's just a simple habit you can start. So your trigger can be immediately a meeting ends, take a short walk. Literally, it can be just around your room, around your home, but take a walk. So these are just very simple examples of things you can do to start bringing in better well-being into your life so that you can have a more sustainable foundation for productivity. Okay, so like we talked about, habit building should not be an insane endeavor. Ideally, it should be starting simple. Like I said, start with the micro habits. Start with 7 minutes of yoga. Think about if you are someone who declares, like many people do at the start of the year, I'm going to be a marathon runner this year. Yes, ye with a busy schedule. Totally, that's going to happen. But instead of going gung-ho into it and then, being all miserable after 1 month because you not feel like you can run like 10 kilometers to go, start very simple. You can start with literally walking for 10 minutes. just walking for 10 minutes. And then you can build that up. Okay, I'm walking. So maybe I'll run for 10 minutes. All right. We can go from there and then build on that 30 minutes more, however you define it, but start small and keep it simple. Don't overcomplicate your life really. And then consistency is key. It's part of the reason why I say start something small and simple, because consistency is also usually easier when something is small and simple. So whether it's something that you're doing every day or every week, make sure you are consistent with it. If you are doing your 7 minutes of yoga, let it be every day. If you are making sure to take a walk in between meetings, try to do that after every meeting. The more consistently you do it, the more it becomes so ingrained in you, you won't even realize when you're suddenly walking between meetings because you're just so used to doing it. And of course, reflect and adjust. Not everything works for everyone in the exact same way. So if something is not working for you, try something else. That's the joy of life. You have options. So definitely think about that when it comes to building new habits. And so finally, I just want you to also have this resource as well. So because one of the first things I encourage people to do when they're thinking about, you know, changing how they live, how they work, is really you have to be aware of how you're spending your time. And so this is a very simple way you can start looking at, how you spend your time on a daily basis. Just in the course of 7 days, start thinking about, what do I do with my time? What do I do with my mornings? How much time do I spend on social media? How much time do I spend on focused work? And so it's a good place to start. So we're dropping these in the chat as well. So don't worry if you can't scan the code on the screen, it's also in the chat. Thank you, Ashton. And then next steps. So what I encourage you to do is really look at your own leadership journey so far. We've learned so much in our lives. Like no matter how old you are, however young you are, you've learned things in your life. And so I want you to start looking at your life holistically in terms of how you've been successful in your roles. What is important to you in your journey? Because having that, essentially, remember the compass, your own unique compass, it's important to know what success means to you in order to really be more productive at work. So reflect on your journey and what are your insights. Next, I want you to think about the changes you want to commit to. Is it about spending more time with your family if it's important to you? Is it about being a healthier, happier person if that's important to you? Then connect with others. Things are so much better in the community. I had my squad meeting this morning. So for those in Ellevate, we have squads. For those not in Ellevate, we have squads. And so they're basically groups that allow you to, really have a community and talk about whatever challenges you're having, and then also celebrating each other. And so it's great to make changes in community because one, you have accountability, and also it gives you encouragement along the way. That's which is why even myself in my work, I run a coaching program for managers. And we encourage accountability and community because it really, really helps you make the changes that you want as a leader. And of course, finally, just continue exploring the different ways you can incorporate it in your life. One of the things I do, which I didn't realize was that unique, but apparently isn't very common, but I have these things called life projects. And so once in a while, I decide to try something new that I find interesting or that I feel, would be challenging to me. At one point, it was, cooking, because I think I spent a good amount of time not cooking. And so I was like, someone just called me up today and like, can you cook? I'm like, questionable. And so therefore I set up like a project for like 6 months. Okay, I will cook something every week for that period, like healthy food, good food that a family can enjoy. And I did. And so now, of course, I still don't cook every day, but I'm a lot more confident about it. And so you can experiment, just, do little experiments in your life about things that make you happy or make the people around you happy and see how they turn out. Take these little bets and see where they take you. So I want you to commit to making one shift this week. One shift, one little thing. So if you're comfortable, let me know in the chat. What's one thing you would like to this week? Remember what we talked about, micro habits. What's one small thing Again, you do not have to be a marathon runner next week. What's one small thing you would like to do this week? Is it walking around more? Qualify for me. Time tracking, excellent. That's a good start. Knowing where your time is going, excellent. Someone said journaling for 5 minutes each morning. Fantastic, fantastic. Definitely a good way to start your day. Exercise for half an hour, 5 days a week. I love it. I love it. So I still catching myself multitasking. Aha, that's a good one. Ah, holding yourself accountable. That's good. So 15-minute exercises, gratitude journal. Oh, gratitude journals are excellent. They do so much for you, but just psychologically. So walking in the morning for at least 15 minutes. Get outdoors as much as possible. That is so true. And if you live in an area with greenery, this is just such a gift. You can't imagine. So if anyone's been living in like a concrete jungle for a while, every time you see the outdoors, it's fantastic. So not doom scrolling on IG. I love it. Not doom scrolling on IG. Okay, like yes, I see where we're going into our lived experiences here. So courage to ask for more openness to human-centered productivity at work. Fantastic. That is great. You can definitely start conversations around this for sure. Walk the dog out more outside. Oh, that sounds lovely. Thanks, Rachel. So I love these commitments. Definitely, definitely. So if there's something I want to leave you with is that to remember, again, we're not machines, but I want you to remember that the most powerful system that you will ever upgrade is you. Like there's so much in the technology space happening. There's, everyone's like, machines are going to replace human beings, which is more so human beings who use technology will replace other human beings that don't. But the real system, the real heart of everything is you. And so you have to live in a way that maintains the body that you've been given, maintains the mind that you have been given, and of course, your heart. All the things that help you be human. Human skills are now more important than ever. They are the things that will differentiate us in the workplace from machines. We are leveraging machines, but ultimately the human skills complement them. So I want you to think more about what is it that makes you uniquely human and how can we maintain that? So thank you so much. I put my information, I think they've shared in the chat as well. Please feel free to reach out. Anyone who's in Ellevate, you can always reach me in the conversations, but LinkedIn is fabulous. Send me a message. Let me know that, you watched this and what you thought of it, what you learned from it. And if you'd like to have a conversation about being more productive at work and really bringing your whole self and integrating that into the way you do your work to achieve the goals that you particularly want to achieve, definitely let me know. Just send me a message or just schedule a chat. I am happy to have a conversation. Thank you.
Isioma, that was absolutely fantastic. I will not share with you how I fared in some of those questions because it wasn't looking so good. Um, but I want to open it up to Q&A, and I'll
Yeah.
kickstart by one of the questions I was observing from some of the chat. How do
Mhm.
you get back on track when something derails you from your um, best laid plans? And then I'd love to open it up for questions in the chat as well. Please put them there.
Mhm.
Free
Best
to raise your hand.
plan. Oh no. I definitely believe me, I'm on top of that. As a recovering perfectionist, I know about these best laid plans. The nice thing about human-centered productivity is that it acknowledges humanity. And so things don't always go as planned. And so think about it as what are the different ways you can adjust to different things. I think one of the things that most people typically have problems with is really their mindset around the issue. So let's say, for instance, you are afraid of missing a deadline at work. It's coming up and, the work in progress is not going according to plan, as it were. Think about the worst case scenario. Many of us think about the worst case scenario and dwell on the worst case scenario. But I encourage you to think about it and then think about what have I actually survived in my life up to this point? Most of the time, many of us actually have gotten through, periods where we didn't do as great academically as we wanted to, or we didn't achieve what we thought we were going to achieve in that moment. So that's one thing, the worst case scenario. Most likely, you're not going to die. Great. And then after that, I want you to think through, okay, so what are the other ways that we can improve the outcome of this scenario? So for instance, can we have a discussion with our boss about it? A lot of times communication is an underlying issue that we don't acknowledge. Many times you can have a conversation and say, okay, this is not going according to plan. How can we fix this? How can we work it so that either we still achieve it or can change the deadline? Having those conversations a lot of the time changes the outcome. But also in terms of both, for instance, if you are doing these things in collaboration with other people, having a strong sense of what expectations are and what your accountability system is, those are very important. I always say that expectations can be the bane of relationships, because if two people have different expectations of a scenario, that's usually where the problem is. Not necessarily the outcome itself, but the expectation of that outcome. If because I have a lot of one in my program, we had a couple and they were having a conversation about expectations. And if, let's say, you're the kind of person who's been spoiled by their parents, like myself, and you get like a gift every year on your birthday or something. If you get married and your husband doesn't give you a gift on your first, like, birthday, you feel disappointed somehow, right? But that's because you probably didn't have a conversation about it. Maybe in his family, like, they're not gift people. Maybe they like experiences more. Maybe like they go somewhere, whatever. But the fact that they didn't have that conversation is what set the expectations differently. So again, a lot of it comes back to communication, and I encourage people to communicate more.
Thank you. There's a question from Elle Blake. And Elle, if you want to jump on the screen, you're welcome to ask the question. Otherwise, I'm happy to tee it up.
Sure, I can. How did you start breaking away from being a perfectionist?
Mm, it's a work in progress. So, but I would say that the start is probably acknowledging you're a perfectionist. I think for a lot of us, it probably started from school, at least it did for me. Very much, I like getting A's, and then people praise you for getting A's. So of course you want to get more A's. When you're in the workplace, unfortunately, it doesn't quite have the same kind of, outcome. You can work very hard and still not get A's in the workplace. And so it's important for you to recognize that real life kind of works differently. And then, of course, again, start to reevaluate what your definition of success is. Is it showing up consistently at work for your team? Doing your best at work, finding opportunities to consistently improve. Because it's like they say, it's more about the journey than the destination. So you have to think about it like one of the core principles of all my programs has always been the idea of continuous improvement. Learning is not a finite journey. You don't just go to school. I got my first degree, yay. I got my master's degree, excellent, done. In the workplace, we're always learning, and it can be both formal and informal. It can be in those sessions where, they're talking about something in a meeting and you're just like, I don't understand why you made that decision. Again, ask. You learn from asking, and then understand that it's an iterative process. Things that, you thought were going to go one way and then didn't go another way, find out why. And then you learn from that. And then you build it in. So I use a general framework when thinking about what success means to an individual. So you start out with your priorities. What is important to you? Whether at work, personal life, just start out with those. And then you think about, what do I need to know? Like, what knowledge do I need to have in order to do this more successfully? And then you have to have the mindset that supports that. I mean, I'm sure you're familiar with having a growth mindset, having that, belief system that essentially it's not about having that perfect answer, but more so the idea that, oh, that's something new. That's something interesting. Oh, it's nice that I learned that versus, oh, I didn't know that kind of thing. So, and despairing about it. So it's having that mindset that allows you to continue to grow. And of course, leveraging the tools around you to do that. We are obviously in an era where, knowledge can be so much more personalized than it ever was before. So we have great opportunities to use that to continue to learn and also to enable our work. And of course, the relationship we had. I think this is one aspect, especially perfectionists kind of slip on a little bit because we feel that, if I'm not doing it right, then there's a problem. But we live in communities, we work with people. And so it's never just about us. And so we have to remember that. And it's an opportunity to learn from the people around us, to build relationships that allow us to be better in ourselves and to give more as well. And so I think having that perspective really helps because I realized that the times when, I've been most in my head about, I could have done this better all the time, is because I'm thinking about myself versus how can I add value to others. And in that sense, it makes the learning process seem so much simpler because I'm learning this because I can add value. And that's always a positive thing. So yeah, so if you can start looking at it from that perspective, it definitely makes life a little easier. Okay.
You're on mute.
Oh, hi,
Yes.
Isioma. So we have a question from Lauren Cohen in the chat. So Lauren, I'll turn it over to you, or I can tee it up, and then we'll yield to Courtney Parks for our last question. So Lauren, feel free to jump on. Go ahead,
Sure.
please.
Hi. Hello, everybody. Hi, Isioma.
Hi, Lauren.
So I suppose mine is around when you know what you need, but the context in which you are working has a more traditional mindset.
Yeah.
And I suppose there is a bit of anxiety about asking for what you need because you kind of worry that the perception is, I don't know, you're not wanting to be productive, or when actually what you need in order to be productive, but the emphasis is on the output, not the outcome. How do you negotiate that in a way where it lands well?
Now that's a great question. I mean, the first thing is, first of all, we shouldn't be afraid to ask. And I know oftentimes it's like, it's easier to say than do, but we really shouldn't be afraid to ask. I have two brothers, and I love the fact that they just, when they want something, they just say it. And I think we need to get better at doing that. And so, first of all, don't be afraid to ask. And then whenever we're having conversations with managers or people in roles like of authority and things like that, we also have to think from the perspective of what do they value as well. Because yes, we want to, have more time because it's beneficial for us, it contributes to our health, to our family life, and all those things. But it's just like, what's in it for them? So think about what it is that they value in the workplace. Is it, I need this report on this day and this time by this time. Can you guarantee that you can do that even with the things that you have asked for? Are there things that you can negotiate with? So again, it comes down to knowing what do your stakeholders value. I've had situations in the workplace where, like, in my early career, in one of my first jobs, I was probably one of the youngest people managing. Everyone I was managing, essentially managing projects, was older than me. And essentially, when you have conversations, you're essentially in the power dynamic, you are like bottom of the totem pole, essentially at that point. But I was able to get what I wanted in a lot of cases because I saw that this manufacturing manager needed XYZ resources from this technician who needed something from the accountant in the office. And I would negotiate those conversations. And that put me in advantageous positions to get things that I wanted. So think about it, not just from even just the direct person that you're looking at, but from the organization as a whole. How can you add value in a way that helps them achieve their goals? The more you can demonstrate that you do that, the more leverage you have when you're having these kind of conversations as well.
Thank you.
Okay.
Courtney, over to you for the last question of the day, please.
Thanks, Anusha, and thanks so much, Isioma. This has been really wonderful, powerful, helpful, practical, all the things. I know you've done and do some amazing work with leaders, and what I love to hear about, because it inspires me and helps me to kind of shift in ways that I need to, as well as it helps me professionally, like, what are the changes that you've seen when you're doing this work with people, with leaders, with teams? What's the difference? Like, without obviously breaching confidentiality, I love to hear like what the transformation is like and what you've seen that's really changed for the people that you've supported.
Fantastic. So one of the clients I had early on, I took this tip from actually one of my coaches, and it was in that period where, she worked from home and she had a kid and basically found it really, really challenging to set boundaries. And this is essentially, a working mother who loves her career, but also loves her kids. But she's just trying to set that boundary between her work and, a child who really wants attention and things like that. And so she was trying to figure out how to get the child to essentially respect the fact that she was going to be at a laptop doing very important work and not to interrupt. So what was recommended was that she put stars, like little glitter and stickers on her headphones. And so she told her daughter, whenever mom has a crown on, she's busy at court. Like she has, and her daughter, because she likes fairy tales, understood perfectly what this meant. So like her mom was like really involved. So like, let's not interrupt mom during this time. And of course, she set up exceptions. So if something happens, you can still interrupt me. But otherwise, mom is busy at court when she has her headphones on, her crown on. But the second she takes it off, she's there for her daughter. And so it seems really, really simple, but it really changed the way she could work and how she could focus time at work, even while also having, quality time with her child. And again, that's why I always start with micro habits, start with the little things. They allow people to really change how they look at work, how they integrate work with their family, with how they live their lives, and really win as a whole.
Isioma, I want to thank you for making time for us today. I thought this was extremely insightful, and I think it leaves us with a lot to reflect on. So this is exactly what we want to accomplish with these self-elevation conversations. We leave people with a lot more to digest afterwards, and you've been so generous with your time. I couldn't thank you more than I'm able to this moment, but this has been delightful. Thank you again.
Thank you so much for having me.
And for everyone for joining us, thank you for sharing the hour with us. And we hope to see you continuously on our roundtables because we intend to have speakers like Isioma on. And I think they will just, really leave you enriched. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye. Bye.